Okay, and we'll start with our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Hello, everybody, and a belated Chodesh Tov. We are now in the month of Shvat, and it's a wonderful month. And we're going to talk about the month of Shvat. We're going to talk about the parsha, and we're going to put together several different layers of ideas that I hope will be inspiring to us on our journey that we are continuously on. So thank you so much for joining me. Hello, Dorothy. Hello, Marlon. Hello, Panina, Nancy, and Maram, and somebody else. I'm assuming maybe it's Gabi, but I'm not sure who else it is. But it's nice to see you all. Okay, and Rhoda, I just saw you underneath, and Miriam underneath my little box here. Okay, the month of Shvat. So the month of Shvat is the month where Moshe begins to speak to the Jewish people before he passes away, 40 years from where we are right now in the parsha. But if we were looking ahead, if we go to the end of the Torah, to Sefer Devarim, to the book of Devarim, the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, opens up with an announcement and giving us a date that Moshe is going to talk to the Jewish people between Rosh Chodesh Shvat and the 7th of Adar, which is next month, when he passes away. And these are his final words. His words, his Torah, is put in and is basically ratified by God, ratified by Hashem, to be one of the books of the Torah. So we have 4 books that are considered directly given, like dictated from God to Moshe. The 5th book of Devarim, of Deuteronomy, are Moshe's words that come from his divine inspiration and that is included in the Torah that God ratifies, so that it's all considered Torah. But where does this start? Let's turn to it just so we can see, because it's just interesting that it gives us the date so that we understand. And we're going to talk about why we want to know the date. So if you want to turn to page, hold on one second. Devarim. You want to turn to, sorry, my fingers are, page 939. Page 939. This is Devarim chapter 1, verse 1. And it says, these are the words that Moshe spoke to all of Israel on the other side of the Jordan, meeting outside my window, concerning the wilderness, concerning the Arava, opposite the Sea of Reeds, between Paran and Tophel and Laban and Chazirot and Dizahav, 11 days from Horeb by way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea, yeah. And then verse 3, it was in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first of the month, when Moshe spoke to the children of Israel. As we know, the first of the months coming from this week's parsha, our months are now going to be calculated with Nisan being the first month of the year. And the 11th month is the month of Shvat. The 12th month is the month of Adar. And then we go to Nisan, which is when we will have Pesach. So the 11th month is the month of Shvat. So the first of the month of Shvat is the time when Moshe starts talking to the Jewish people. When he speaks, it's considered a combination of a cross between the written Torah and the oral Torah. It is the experience that the Jewish people who hadn't been born at the time of the giving of Torah at Mount Sinai 40 years before would have a Sinai-like experience of Moshe talking to them and speaking to them and teaching them Torah before he dies and before they go into the land of Israel. This all happens for this entire month of Shvat and 1 week of the month of Adar. Now, it's not just something that we think about, oh, that's what happened then. This is considered, this month is about the transmission of Torah, the transmission and the learning of gaining deeper understandings of Torah wisdom. And it's connected to the astrological sign for the month of Shvat. don't know if anybody knows what the astrological sign is for the month of Shvat. Of which astrological sign are we in the month of Shvat? If anybody has a February birthday, they probably would know this. Is somebody, you can unmute and say it if you know.
Aquarius.
Sagittarius.
Aquarius. Hence, in my message to you, when we have the song that probably a lot of people know, I never knew any songs when I was growing up as a teenager because I could never understand what the words were. But we know, when the moon is in the seventh house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, then peace will guide the planets and love will steer the stars. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Now, having looked that up, if you look up, what is the meaning of the moon being in the seventh house, etc., Jupiter aligned with Mars? If you look it up, if you Google it, it'll say that is astrological gibberish. This is not from a Jewish perspective. Why is it said it's gibberish? Not because there isn't such a thing, but because this alignment of stars, the moon, the planets, all of these things happens on a more regular basis. And so it's not really considered to be like an age of Aquarius. This happens, I didn't go further into it. I didn't go down that rabbit hole of finding out how often it is and what hours, et cetera, et cetera. So it is a thing. It's just not as much of a thing as the song made it out to be. However, it is.
Well, excuse me, but I'm going to tell the fifth dimension what you said.
Okay, you tell them. Okay. So we have this sign of Aquarius, which is the sign for the month of Shvat. What is the sign? So you can tell by the word Aquarius, agua is the word for water, and it's the water carrier. Now, the water carrier sign, so we know for us, the water carrier is the water of Torah. That Torah is always compared to water. And the bucket that is the sign of Aquarius is like a person carrying a bucket and pouring water out for other people, is the idea of dipping our bucket into the well of Torah water and Mayim Chayim, the living waters of Torah, and drawing out deeper and deeper understanding, and specifically sharing it, because the water carrier brings water for other people. And interestingly, just this is not from the Jewish perspective alone, that even though Aquarius is a water carrier, it's actually considered to be an air sign, not a water sign. It's an air sign, and it is a sign that is connected to intellect, to spiritual, and to communication, which I found very fascinating, because that's exactly what we're saying. That we're talking about the digging down and bringing up the abundance of water and giving it to other people in a way that can be communicated to them. And that is precisely what we're saying that Moshe did during the month of Aquarius, during the month of Shvat, and before he takes leave of the Jewish people. So this month is considered to be very auspicious for digging deeper and going back to the well from whence you have dipped before, and re-dipping deeper and gaining more, and not thinking like, oh, I've been to that well, been there, done that, drew that water already, I already know that, of understanding that there are this infinite layers and layers and layers and depths of understanding for us to be able to bring up and to appreciate. So we are in the month of Aquarius. Excuse me. Which matches beautifully with what Moshe was doing at that time. And again, we say that it's not just, oh, that's what happened then. That's what's happening now, because we have re-entered this dimension of time, and we are in this place of Aquarius. We are in this place of Shvat. We are in this place where the water carrier, where we are digging deeper and taking our buckets. Now, what's the most important thing if you are dipping your bucket into water, into a well? There's several things, even at just like the basic water level, you want to be very careful of. Number one, you don't want this other song of "There's a hole in my bucket, Mariah, Mariah." You don't want a bucket with a hole in it. It says, like, what puts holes in our buckets? It says those are the things that are character deficiencies on our part, where it kind of seeps out. It doesn't hold it. So that we want the bucket to be strong and complete. The better the bucket, the more it can hold. The bigger the bucket, the more it can hold. The more expansive, the more space we create to take the wisdom in, the more we can hold. What determines that? That's going to be related to our piece when we talk about the moon, but it has to do with ego. To the extent that our ego is in the way is the extent to which the bucket cannot be filled with the wisdom of Torah. Says Hashem says, I and the person who's arrogant, we can't occupy the same place, the same space. So it's a matter of emptying ourselves out to create the space for the wisdom of Torah to come in. And then, of course, we don't want to spill it as we take it out. Spilling it means not taking it to heart and letting it just slosh out after we went to the trouble of getting it. So all the metaphors that you would want to use for drawing the water, drawing the well of wisdom of Torah, all apply, especially in this month. And it started just a few days ago with Rosh Chodesh Shvat and is in operation for this entire month. So very profound opportunity to take advantage of everything we'd want to do in order to make sure that we're actually going to the well, that we have a bucket, that we're dipping, we don't have holes or as few holes as possible, and that we make space and then we bring it up and we don't drop it and we don't spill it out and that we share it with other people. So the water carrier, again, is carrying water to bring to others to communicate. And just as the Aquarius sign, although it is involving water, it is really a sign of air and of intellect and of communication. And that's what Moshe was all about. So just as an aside, for a person who just a few parshas ago said that he was a person who couldn't speak, he does a really outstanding job at the end of 40 years of speaking for 5 weeks straight to the Jewish people from Rosh Chodesh Shvat until he passes away. Yes, Etta.
Did you hear, like, at Mount Sinai, everybody was healed who
Yes.
had any
Yes.
problem? So I
Yes.
assume Moshe was then able to speak properly.
Good point. So interestingly, yes, and I actually heard that it wasn't exactly the case. When he spoke words of Torah, he spoke clearly, but not if he was just having a conversation with you and me. That was how the people knew, because Hashem could not have, you can't have somebody who is teaching the emes, the truth and the wisdom of Torah, not be understandable. So it says that when he spoke words of Torah, he was completely clear. Hashem was clear to him, the communication was clear, and he was clear to us and to those he spoke. But that in his regular conversation, that may not have happened so much. But yes, as far as everybody else, that everyone else was healed. Miriam.
Yeah, I just had a thought back on the water that man does not live without water. We can
That
live
is so
without
true.
food for a period of time. So if Torah is water, then it is life-giving also.
Absolutely. That's why it's called Mayim Chaim, living waters, and which is why
Right.
also we read the Torah 3 times a week, because a person cannot go without water. So we read on Monday, Thursday, and Shabbos, because you can't go without water longer than that. And so you cannot go without Torah for longer than that, and preferably every day. As they say, drink your water is drink your Torah, to get your Torah, your nourishment that your neshama is waiting to have. So that is the first part of our conversation, is about just what the opportunity of the month, of what the month of Shvat offers to us, and to keep all of those images in mind. Then we get to our parsha for this week, which is the parsha of Bo. So let's turn to that to start off on page 341. 341, last week we had a whole conversation about the 7 makos, the 7 plagues that were connected to the 7 sfirot that we talked about last week. These 3 final makos are connected to the 3 remaining sfirot of Chachma, Bina, and Dat, though we are actually going to put that to the side. We're not going to talk about the sfirot aspect because what we're going to talk about is primarily about the moon. So in this week's parsha, we have the beginning of the 8th plague. So what I want to do, this is from a shiur from Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg, and I just have to share it with you, and it'll tie back into our conversation about the moon, but this will be kind of an introduction. First of all, the parsha's name is Bo. What does Bo mean? Bo means come. Hashem says to Moshe on page 341, chapter 10, verse 1, Hashem says to Moshe, come to Pharaoh, for I have made his heart and the heart of his servants stubborn, so that I can put these signs of mine in his midst, and so that you may relate in the ears of your son and your son's son that I made a mockery of Egypt and my signs that I placed among them, that you may know, you, the Jewish people, that I am Hashem. Normally, we would have expected the Torah to say that Hashem said to Moshe, Lech. Hashem has used that word before. Go to Paro, not come to Paro. When he says come, it means all sorts of things, but the most basic way of understanding is that Hashem is saying to Moshe, I'm coming with you. Come, let us go. For us to know and to teach us the lesson that whatever we are going through, Hashem does not send us. Hashem comes with us, that Hashem accompanies us. Again, we have heard from the hostages who were in the tunnels of Gaza, who said they felt Hashem was with them in the tunnels. They could feel that. For us to know that whenever we are going through something, we are never alone, that Hashem is with us. And he may be telling us where we are going together is someplace challenging, difficult, whatever the circumstances might be, but you are not going alone. I am always coming with you. So that first bow is I am coming with you, and you and I are going to Pharaoh, and you're going to be speaking, but it's going to be us together. Also, just a small gematria, in case you ever forget, that the gematria of Bo is 3, Bet is equal to 2, Aleph is equal to 1, for a total of 3, and that there are 3 makos in this parsha. So if you ever forget, if someone wakes you up in the middle of the night, they say, how many makos are in Parsha's Bo? Then you can just say, Bo, 3, and you'll just be top on your block to know that. Okay, now here's something really fascinating, which is all of the other makos, Hashem tells Moshe what the makkah is going to be. And he'll say, go to Pharaoh and tell him it's going to be A, B, or C, the blood or the frogs or whatever it's going to be. Except when it comes to this makkah number 8. When it comes to the locusts, let's read and we'll see. We're so used to just reading it that we don't really notice it. So far, when Hashem has spoken to Moshe, he hasn't said anything about I'm sending locusts. What we just read, he said my signs and my wonders, and you're going to know, etc. So then, verse 3, Moshe and Aaron come to Pharaoh and said to him, so said Hashem, God of the Hebrews, until when will you refuse to be humbled before me? Send out my people, that they may serve me. For if you refuse to send forth my people, behold, tomorrow I shall bring a locust swarm into your border. It's like, where'd that come from? God didn't say, I'm going to do it. Who made the decision? Interestingly, our sages say Moshe decided that it was going to be locust. He decided that it was going to be, in Hebrew, it's called arbeh. He was going to send the locusts. And you might say, like, why would God give him a choice? And what does it mean? And of all the different plagues or makos that could be sent, why would Moshe choose that one, the makkah of locusts? So what we learn is that the makkah of locusts, it said, was sent midah keneged midah, measure for measure for what against the Egyptians. What's the measure for measure? So there's two pieces of information. One is, hold on 1 second, let me get to it. Keep your string here, and we're going to go back to the beginning of Shemot, when the beginning of Exodus, when the Pharaoh first decides that the Jewish people are a problem. And when he decides that they're a problem, he says, page 293, this is chapter 1, verse 10. He says, come, let us outsmart it, meaning the Jewish people, lest it become numerous. And it may be that if a war will occur, it will join our enemies. When it says that lest it become numerous, if you go to the Hebrew on the right-hand side, and you go to the second line from the bottom, that line has a little yud next to it, and you go in a few words, you'll see the word pen yirbeh. Pen yirbeh means lest they multiply. Like, we don't want to have so many Jews. We don't want them to become so numerous. That word yirbeh is the same root, looks the same as the word arbeh, which is the locust. What's the nature of locusts? Is that they come in a multitude. They swarm. So it's like, you didn't want the Jews to multiply. We're going to send, Hashem's going to send something that is in such a multitudinous form, it's going to destroy you. We, the Jews, had nothing against you, and you didn't want us to multiply. Well, now you're going to get something that is going to destroy you. So based on that word, pen yirbeh, I will tell Hashem to send arbeh, to send the locusts. In addition, something very interesting in the book of Proverbs, there's all sorts of interesting sayings about all sorts of things. One of them is about locusts. And it says that locusts do not have a king. They work together as a single swarm. They unify as a swarm with a united purpose, and they go out as one without having a leader. They just work together and they go out. That phrase in Proverbs is lo nusaf. They go out to get, vinusaf, and they join together from like Chag HaAsif, which is like a harvest of bringing things together. Vinusaf, they come together. How is this related? If you look in that same verse that we just looked at the beginning of Shemot, when it says, I'm so sorry, that they're going to gather, they're going to join our enemies. Look at the last line in the Hebrew on the right-hand side, page 292, vinosaf, and they were going to gather with our enemies. It says, the Jewish people are meant to be gathering together as one group for a purpose. And so the arbeh, but the Egyptians didn't want us to gather because they accused us, like the blood libel. They're going to gather with our enemies and fight against us, which we would never done, and like that's not what we do. So Moshe is saying, we're going to send against you a creature that destroys by the fact that they gather, but they gather as one swarm and they are so destructive. So it says the arbeh, the locust itself, was midah keneged midah. What you accuse the Jews of doing and what you tried to prevent us from doing, we're going to send something in insect form that's going to do the very thing that you said that we were going to do. In a total case of projection. So of the Egyptians onto us, it was like, okay, then this is what you get. So this is how Moshe, if you can say, out of the bag of tricks, bag of makos, of what would be a fitting makkah, what would be the fitting thing? This is like such an interesting partnership between Hashem and Moshe. It's kind of like saying, I yield to you. What do you think it should be? And he's saying, I think locusts, because that's the appropriate thing. Now, on the surface, it just looks like, yeah, that'd be another destructive thing. Let's go with that. But it's not, it's just destructive, because everything throughout this entire drama is all about teaching a lesson to us, teaching a lesson to the Egyptians, but primarily to us, because the Egyptians are not reviewing this parsha at all. So it's here for us to learn that lesson. So that's the Arba. Now, after having the hail and the locusts and the boils and the cattle disease and the blood and the frogs and the lice and everything else, and it's getting more and more devastating, the hail knocked out the crops and the locusts took care of whatever was left. So that's plague number 8. Then plague number 10, we know, is the killing of the firstborn. Plague number 9, I have to say, you might think, does darkness seem like it's really escalating? I mean, they couldn't move for 3 days. And then they could move for 6 days. Okay, so there's all sorts of inconveniences that you can picture that would be a problem with that. But if you're getting into destructiveness, the plague of darkness doesn't seem like on the list of hierarchy of problems that would be so terrible. However, if we understand that Hashem also was making, as he said, that he's going to make let's go back to our parsha of Bo, because what did he say? What God said when he first tells Moshe to come to Pharaoh, he says on page 300 and, hold on a second, 41, he says specifically that I made a mockery of Egypt. A mockery of Egypt is a mockery of the gods of Egypt. What is the most important god of the Egyptians?
Ra.
Ra, exactly, the sun. So creating darkness was as if you were killing the entire system. Even more, the word Pharaoh, or the Pharaoh's name of Ramses, it's really Rameses, which meant the son of S-O-N, the son of the sun. That Pharaoh said he was a god. What kind of god was he? He was the diminutive sun god. So if you blot out all of the light and create that darkness, you have in effect blotted out the supreme god of the Egyptians. And that is a next to death kind of experience. So with that, it says that then the next plague then becomes actual physical death. So once the entire system of the Egyptians has been wiped out and made a mockery of, then it becomes the killing of the firstborn. So I'm going to share with you just an interesting, very interesting aside here, is when Moshe warns Pharaoh about the plague of the locusts, and he tells him what it's going to be. This is a fascinating thing. This is just so interesting. Verse 6 on page 341. They'll fill your houses, the houses of all your servants, and all the houses of Egypt, such as your fathers and grandfathers have not seen from the day they came onto the earth until this day. All of a sudden, Moshe is bringing in, like, this is something that like your fathers and grandfathers have never seen before. Fascinating interpretation that says that the Egyptians' fathers and grandfathers, all of the ancestors, came back to life to witness this plague on the Egyptians, to see how horrible of people they were. The opposite of nachas. So, we have in the Jewish tradition that at a wedding, that if the bride and groom have deceased parents or grandparents, that they actually come to the chuppah. In fact, Rabbi Goldberg said that he went to go visit when he was in New Jersey or someplace, maybe he went to go visit his grandparents' graves, and he saw pieces of paper like on the graves. Now, usually what you expect to see is like stones, right? You go to the cemetery and you put a stone. They were the wedding invitations for the children and grandchildren, that you take an invitation, which I'd never heard of, you take an invitation to the grave of your parents or your grandparents to invite them. And it's not just like a heebie-jeebie thing. It's like because they're invited to come and they are there. Many people put them on the invitation as well. They'll put the list of the names of the parents, whether they are alive or deceased, and include them because they are considered to be at the wedding. So this was the opposite. This was like, okay, Egyptian ancestors, come see what a horrible people you have spawned here. And then I didn't have a chance to ask, but I would have asked and said, if the people who would have come back to life would have been the people who did remember Joseph and who did remember all of the good that Jacob and all the blessing that came, they would have come and would have been like shaking their heads in shame. Like that, I can't believe you turned out like this. Like, what a Shonda you are. So he's saying, he's like humiliating them by saying, you know, your ancestors are looking at what you're doing here, and they are not happy. And then we see an act of chutzpah on Moshe's part. If you look at the end of that same verse, it says, and he turned and left Pharaoh's presence. What does that mean? He turned his back.
You're not allowed
Okay.
to turn your back to royalty. You're supposed to back off.
Absolutely right, Selena. You are not allowed to take leave of royalty by turning your back. That is an act of tremendous disrespect. It's like when
And
you go to the
also, they have to give you permission to leave.
permission, like, yes, you'd have to be dismissed. And okay, so to be able to say, to have the last word, Moshe had the last word, and then he turns his back and he walks out. This is like, we know, like when we go, like again on the opposite side, when we take leave of the kotel, I'm always a little nervous about this because I don't like walking backwards into a crowd on slippery tile. So I'm kind of like walking backwards and looking over my shoulder at the same time. But it's the same thing when you leave the kotel. When someone comes down from having an aliyah, they're supposed to also kind of walk backwards away. You don't turn your back on somebody of greater stature, on the Torah, on the kotel, all of these things. So Moshe, who has been very respectful at God's command to be very respectful of Pharaoh, turns his back and walks out. And what does this trigger? Look what it triggers. Once this has been done, then verse 7, Pharaoh's servant said to him, how long will this be a snare for us? Send out the men that they may serve Hashem their God. Do you not yet know that Egypt is lost? Is that his advisors see this, and it's kind of like, this is over. This is over. And the next thing we see is verse 8. So Moses and Aaron were returned to Pharaoh. What does that mean? They were returned. They didn't return. Pharaoh's advisors went out and said, no, come back. He'll let you go. And Pharaoh says, okay, go and serve Hashem. So there's like all sorts of interesting political intrigue that's going on here with just a slight little phrase here that you wouldn't notice of Moshe turned his back and he walked out. It's like, I have no more respect for you. And then his advisors, it just kind of causes the dominoes to fall. And then his advisors, and then there's going to be a whole repercussion before the last plague of all the elders, the eldest in the firstborns in Egypt are going to cause like an insurrection of like, you're causing our death. So it's a very dramatic thing that now happens within the Egyptian hierarchy of how they're handling this. And Moshe does this just with a little sign of disrespect of turning his back. So as these plagues unfold, we see so many different layers going on at the same time. But now what we're going to devote ourselves for the rest of the time to is, hold on a second. Sorry, getting over a cold.
I have an idea, Ellen. If you drink hot water, it will help you so much. Just don't burn yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. I have been drinking a lot of hot water. Okay. There's so much drama. And right before, after the plague of darkness, with the plague of the locusts, they destroy everything. And then we're going to have the plague of the darkness. And things are tense. Turn to page 347. Moshe really gives it. I love this. Moshe he's so articulate. Let's pick up in verse 8 on page 347. Then all these servants of yours, Pharaoh, will come down to me and bow to me, saying, leave, you and your entire people that follows you. After that, I will leave. And he left Pharaoh's presence in a burning anger. Hashem said to Moshe, Pharaoh will not heed you, so that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. So Moshe and Aaron performed all these wonders before Pharaoh, but Hashem strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not send out the children of Israel from his land. So here we have Moshe in a burning anger. Hashem was like, he's not going to listen to you because there's still more to come. And then we have the famous interlude, breaking up the drama. You know, when you watch like a mini, I guess now you can go through commercials. You don't have to actually watch commercials anymore. But in the olden days when you were watching a mini series and then they had like all of these commercials right before the end because they knew that you weren't going to turn off the TV because it was getting to the big moment. So nobody turn off the TV. And now we're going to have a commercial break. Chapter 12, verse 1, page 349. Hashem said to Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month shall be for you the beginning of the months. It shall be for you the first of the months of the year. This is the establishment of the month of Nisan being the first month and setting up a lunar calendar. And then it goes on with all of the directions for the Pesach offering and what the procedure is supposed to be. And then is going to be the final plague, the killing of the firstborn. According to Rashi, this statement right here should have been the beginning of the Torah. Instead of, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth, it would have been, Hashem said to Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month shall be for you the beginning of the months. It shall be for you the first of the months of the year. A lunar calendar. Now we're going to dissect this a little bit and then explore a fascinating approach. Hashem said to Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt. Now I ask you a question. Do we need to be told that God is speaking, that Moshe and Aaron are in the land of Egypt? I think we're all really clear that that's where we are. So what is the significance of this being given to the Jewish people while they were in the land of Egypt? And then when it says, this month shall be for you, the beginning of the months, that the lunar calendar is being given to the Jewish people. So we're going to answer these two questions and then move into a deeper question about the moon itself. Being given the lunar calendar in Egypt, in Mi-Tzrayim, a place of pain and bondage and difficulty, says, what is the nature of the moon? It says the nature of the moon is that it waxes and wanes, waxes and wanes. So the Jewish people are being told, regardless of the circumstances that you find yourself in, as individuals, as a community, as a nation. Whether it's Mitzrayim, we're not talking about on Mount Sinai. We're not talking about in the land of Israel, we're talking about in Mitzrayim itself. I'm here to tell you that you are always able to renew yourself. We say, what do we call the new month? It's called Rosh Chodesh. Chodesh comes from the word Chadash. Titchadshu, like that there is the ability to be renewed and restart and start fresh at any moment, regardless of the circumstances. That Hashem is telling us by having the moon as your guide, I'm telling you that you are like the moon. And you may plot your days, and your individual days may not follow the moon and be so smoothly going from a sliver to a quarter to a full to a half, et cetera, et cetera. Your life may be today was a sliver, another day was a full moon. Sometimes I'm waxing, sometimes I'm waning, sometimes I have months when I am waning, and then only sometimes when I'm waxing. That the idea that there is a dynamic process that God is always involved with and is accompanying us, just like Bo El Paro, come to Pharaoh, I am with you, and you can always renew yourself. It says this is why it was given in Mitzrayim, in the midst of the challenge. And why is it lachem, for you? Because it is for you are the ones who have to master this ability. There's only so much. People say, well, if only God would do this and God would do that, then I would be this and I would be that. It's like, that's all well and good. But the bottom line is that we're the ones who have to take initiative. Hashem, it all comes from Hashem, but we have to initiate the process. Even going back to our bucket, the water is sitting there in the well. And if you just go and look into the well and say, wow, there's a lot of water in there, and you don't put in the bucket, you're not getting any water. Okay, so there is a partnership that is required. There's a partnership that is required, and this is lachem, this is for you. So let's talk about the moon. First, let's back up. The days of the week in English, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, where do those names come from? What are those names? Somebody know? Etta.
Are they Norse?
Okay, but what do they refer to? What is
the gods, the pagan
I'm sorry?
gods. The pagan gods.
Pagan gods.
Thursday, Friday is another woman god.
So actually the original days come from the planets, the names of the planets. So now I have a book, a sefer, it's called Sefer Yetzirah, which is a very dense book. I don't actually recommend getting it. It's like a reference book that I don't even understand the charts, but it has information on it. Let's take a look at the names of the days. So starting with Sunday. The Sunday is named for what? The sun. Monday is named for the moon. Tuesday, okay, what is Tuesday named for? It says actually that it's named for Mars, and I forget in which language it is, like a tu. It has a TEW sound. That it's named Tuesday is for Mars. Wednesday is, what is Wednesday for?
Venus.
Wednesday is for Mercury. What is it in Spanish? You can recognize it in the Latin words. Wednesday in Spanish is miércoles. Okay, it's
Mercredi in French.
Mercredi. Okay, so it's from Mercury. Thursday. What is Thursday?
Jeudi.
What is it, Dorothy?
Well, in French it's jeudi.
Jeudi, and it's for
Jupiter.
For the planet Jupiter. And Friday in Spanish is viernes. I don't know what it is in
Vendredi.
Okay, and that is for Venus. And Saturday, which is we can recognize more, is for
Saturn.
Okay. There are 7 celestial beings that we call like the days of the week that in Jewish thought are understood to have certain power, certain influences. And the moon is one of them. It says the influence of the moon, that actually all of those planets are said to have a different kind of negative influence. A negative influence. The moon has a negative influence. Now that sounds really weird to us because we're like, wow, the moon is so cool. I sent that picture of the full moon over the Dead Sea. It's like so cool. But kind of like the rainbow that has kind of like, That has a negative connotation about Hashem making a promise not to destroy us. And when we see the rainbow, it's a reminder of like, I really deserve to wipe you out, but I'm not going to because I promised I wouldn't. The moon also has a negative connotation, but let's talk about it. Now, this is going to require kind of holding paradoxical ideas in our mind at the same time. So let's first start with this. When you were growing up, do you remember hearing a midrash about the moon when it was created? That initially, who would like to share the quick version of that? Of what was that? What was that?
The sun was not happy that the moon would share his space. So God said, well, in that case, the moon will become more, hang on. The moon
Absolutely,
was
it's actually
dimmed.
the opposite.
The moon was dimmed.
Right.
Sorry, yeah. The moon
Actually, it
was
was the
dimmed.
opposite.
You're right. The
Wasn't
moon
the
was dimmed,
sun-
but we live by the moon's
Moon
calendar,
and the
but the
sun were
sun
the
would
same
get all of
sign.
the shine.
Okay, so let's review this. Originally, the sun and the moon were equal size. The moon goes to Hashem and complains, you can't have two kings, with the subplot being, I think I should be in charge and not the sun. And God is like, okay, go and diminish yourself, okay? And the next thing we see, we have the large body and the smaller body. So let's go back to the conversation about what was the moon to begin with. When there was the sun and the moon being the same physical size, where did the moon's light come from?
It's a reflection of the sun.
It came from the sun. Okay. Now, think about that. Your light is coming from the sun, which means the bigger the sun is,
The more you will shine.
the more I will shine. Now, think about the delusional arrogance, misunderstanding of reality. For the moon, which is empty of light, to complain to God that the sun doesn't want the sun to be so big. That's the ultimate cut off your nose to spite your face. It's like, you think the sun should be smaller? Well, you want smaller light? I will make you smaller, because what you're saying is you don't get it. You are a reflection of the light of the sun. What should you have said? Thank you, Hashem, for making me as big as I am, because that way I can reflect all of this light that you've given the sun. Instead, it's like this twisted of like, I want to have more light. This was a little bit like Korach, like I think, like I want to be in charge. I want to have more light. It's like, well, how do you think this system works? You're a reflection of the light of the sun. And so Hashem says, we're going to diminish you. So what does this mean? It says, the moon represents the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination of what are called bad thoughts, wrong thoughts, specifically thoughts of jealousy. It's also connected to the 10th commandment of lo tachmod, of don't be coveting things of your neighbors, because you don't understand that each person gets what Hashem wants them to have. So it says, this is responsible for so much grief in our life, because what it says is, I wanted to be king. I wanted to wear the crown. I want to be bigger. It's like, your light is coming. You are a reflection of the light. Now let's just step aside here and we'll talk about the place where this happens correctly, which is the relationship between Moshe and his successor, which is Joshua. Moshe is called the sun and Joshua is called the moon. But in this case, it's the correct relationship, that the light that Moshe gave out, all Yehoshua did, kind of like our bucket bringing up the water, all Yehoshua did was to make himself present and to make himself into a vessel to reflect the light of Moshe. And the entire time that Yehoshua was the leader of the Jewish people going to the land of Israel, there was no rebellion against him. It's fascinating. No rebellion. He carried the light, he reflected the light of Moshe for the rest of his life. They can say, well, that's because Moshe made it clear that he was his successor. Things don't always go so smoothly. Just because someone makes it clear at a coronation that this person is in charge doesn't mean that that lasts for the next 60 years. That Yehoshua was able to do that. So he's called the moon. He is the one who is able to carry the reflected light. So what is it, our relationship with the moon? It says every month we get a reminder when the moon is small on Rosh Chodesh that we are about to enter a month facing this Yetzer Hara. Every month. So there is a tradition, which I usually don't observe. The day before Rosh Chodesh is called Yom Kippur Katan, a mini Yom Kippur. Some people fast. Yom Kippur Katan. Why are we having a Yom Kippur Katan? You could say, well, that's kind of a good idea. Instead of having Yom Kippur just once a year, instead of having all your pent up sins, might as well do it like on a 12-month payment plan, and do it before.
So we don't run away with Gaiva, and we remember that we have to be humble. And the reason that we have to be humble is God's in charge.
God's in charge. Exactly. So on that Yom Kippur Katan, before the new month gets started, and we face another month meeting this challenge, we say, we have do some teshuvah over what kind of went wrong the month before, because it is a lifetime. Nobody graduates from this program. It doesn't say well, once you've been through 70 years of this, then you're good to go and you never have to deal with this again. This is the human nature, is to wanna to wear the crown. Kind of like Pharaoh, who said, I am God and I created the Nile and I created myself. It's like, you've got to be delusional to say that. But in effect, that's what we do. It says, anytime that we do something wrong, commit a sin, it's because we want to be in charge. I want to do what I want. I don't want to reflect the light of Hashem in this world. I want to do what I want to do. That's all it is. It's as simple and as complicated as that. So every month we're told, yes, Dorothy.
One question. So why is it called Katan? Doesn't that mean groom? Katan?
Katan means small. Katan.
Okay. Hatan is groom.
Hatan is groom. This is Katan with a kuf.
Katan. Okay.
Katan.
Small.
A Yom Kippur Katan, a small Yom Kippur, a miniature version, because we're on a constant checking this out of how we respond to this. Because that's what happens is we, the Jewish people, are called the moon people. What does that mean? Not just that we count our time, that we have a lunar calendar. Our main job is to reflect God's light in this world. When it says we were created B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God, we are to make that manifested. How does it get manifested? Through the mitzvot, through the Torah. Living a life of mitzvot and Torah is the manifestation. We want it to be something else. We want it to be what we want it to be. No, I'm going to manifest God, blah, 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 in some other ways. Like, you're like the moon going to God and saying, I don't think that there should be two kings, and I think I should be the one in charge. It's like, you're the reflection. So this is our challenge, and we go through this every month. So here's the paradox. There is a special, in addition to Rosh Chodesh being a holiday, how are we supposed to feel on Rosh Chodesh? Are we supposed to feel like, ugh, I can't believe another month I have to deal with this challenge of this Yetzer Hara? It's like, it's a simcha. Right? It's happy. Chodesh Tov. Okay, this is happy. In addition to that, there is a ceremony that usually most women don't participate in because it's done Saturday night at the beginning of the month after Shabbos is over. It's called Kiddush Levana, the sanctification of the moon. It's when, and you have a number of days to do it, when the moon is new and the men go outside and they sing, and they're supposed to be dancing, and you say Shalom Aleichem to people, and you're supposed to come home in a happy mood and say Chodesh Tov. It's like, what's everyone so happy about? It's like, it should be, I can't believe, am I like one of these people that's like a hamster on a, like one of those little wheels, and I'm like going again, I'm gonna have another month when I have to have this same challenge. So here's the paradox. We like challenges. Human beings thrive on challenges. We're getting ready for the Super Bowl season. People buy tickets, they spend money, they're going to sit in freezing weather. Yes, that's right. Yes, it's only a few days when the moon first starts. Once you've passed a certain number, it has to be visible, it has to be at the beginning of the when it's waxing. So when we're talking about when it's still small and we're going to be happy to have this challenge, it's like, yes, the Yetzer Hara is starting up with me again. I'm so excited. It's like, why am I so excited? It's like, are the Broncos excited to face the New England Patriots? I think so. Now, what if we said, you know what? We arranged for you to play because we want you to win. So we arranged for you to play against the Little League team of the Denver JCC. Because we figured that's, then for sure you're going to score so many points. There would be like, you've got to be kidding. That's ridiculous. A person, a team, a nation that has a gift or a skill wants to use it. When people play tennis, they always want to play against someone who's a little bit better than they are. They don't want to just play because they have an easy win. Our relationship with the Yetzer Hara is our opponent. Because we have the Christian view of the devil, and we have it like this antithesis of God kind of image in our head, it sometimes blows us off track. Our Yetzer Hara is our worthy opponent who is going to rise up and meet us in the areas that challenge each one of us in exactly the place where we need to be challenged. How should I feel about that? Okay, I should feel okay. I'm like, wow, because I'm coming. I'm coming to be able to. I'm coming to be able to prevail and enter into this experience and into this, not a game because that makes it sound trivial, but going into this experience. This gives me a certain level of simcha, which the challenge gives me simcha, but I also need simcha in order to prevail in the challenge. If I have a shlepetic attitude as the month starts, and I'm like, ugh, another month, another challenge, I will never be successful. So said Hashem to us, this is for you. Remember the command that was given to Abraham when it says, Lech lecha, go for your benefit? This system is lachem. This is for your benefit. This is for your benefit. Yes, for sure. The waxing and waning of the moon also reflects the rise and fall of Jewish communities. Absolutely. So that's true. And then this understanding, what we're looking at is how the moon reflects the Yetzer Hara of the challenge that we have in specifically addressing the challenge of not remembering that we are to reflect Hashem's light in this world. And we go off track every time we forget. So if someone decides to commit an Avera, it's because for that moment, their desires got the better of them, or they talk themselves into saying like, it doesn't really matter, God doesn't care, or it's not even really a mitzvah, it's just somebody made this up. Like we go through some sort of like mental shenanigans to try to talk us into doing whatever we want to do. In other words, we rationalize. It says, this is the challenge that the moon represents. When we have the Kiddush Levana, I want you to sanctify the moon. Think about the other things we sanctify. We sanctify things that tend to be human experiences that could take us in one direction or another. We sanctify the act of eating because we could just eat like animals and just either be oblivious or, just guzzling food. We sanctify sexuality because it could end up being something that is the opposite of holy, the opposite of anything that is beautiful, that could be the most depraved action that one could commit against another person. We sanctify things where we are on the edge and could go one way or the other. So Hashem is saying, I want you to sanctify the moon. I want you to sanctify this tendency that you as human beings have. And I'm going to give you a gift to help you do it. What is that gift? The Torah. I'm going to give you the Torah and the mitzvot that will help you. I'm going to give you influences that will help you. Every month there will be a spiritual influence that will help you. I'm going to give you a whole system that will help you. It doesn't make the challenge go away, but it shifts it from being a burden that is unworkable to a challenge that we step up and actually gracefully and happily accept and say, I'm up for the challenge, because that's why we're here. Because each challenge, we grow. We will grow in each challenge, each thing that happens to us that is our own moon experience, where we're going to Hashem and saying, but I wanted to be king, and forget that we are a reflection. This is what will help us. This is why Rashi says that this should have been the beginning of the Torah. Because if we don't know the nature of human beings, the nature of who we are, and what the system is that we are participating in, we will never be able to be successful. So he says, this is where the Torah should start, is we're starting with the moon. We're starting with Moon Day, Monday. We're starting with the moon at the very beginning, and your whole calendar is going to be based on that. When we talk about in this Kiddush Levana, this ceremony, we talk about in the future. In the future, it says the moon will be restored to its full size. That's associated with Mashiach. What will that mean? That means at that time, the moon will be larger so that it can reflect even more light, and it'll be the light of the day and the light of the night will be the same. One will be initiated light and one will be reflected light. When will this happen? When the Jewish people remember that they are a reflection of Hashem in this world. So that when we make ourselves a better reflection, we will change that dynamic, and the moon in the end will reach its restored place. So when the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, then peace will guide the planets and love will steer the stars. And this will be the dawning of the age of Aquarius. In the meantime, we have the month of Aquarius. We have this parshas of Bo. We have the gift of the moon. We have the challenge that is being given to us. And we have a tradition and a history and a structure that allows us to meet the challenge. And the assumption isn't that we're going to be perfect and that we're going to graduate from the moon. It's all a process. And every month we go through a cycle of waxing and waning and waxing and waning. Just like how there are some days, some weeks where you start every Monday. What? The diet starts on Monday. The diet starts, or my exercise program starts on February 1st. It's like, how many times do I need to start over? A lot. And guess what? It's okay. Unlike Christianity, which finds a flaw in the human experience, original sin, and that we need to be saved, all of these things from being human, we do not need to be saved. We need to engage. It says the Jewish people are the ones who engage with life and face the shortcomings and the waxing and the waning and the rising and the falling. And that is the human experience. And even though we think we're starting at square one every time, we actually aren't. Every time we get up and try again, it may be microscopic, but we are making progress. And that's our goal, is just to make progress on our journey. And in the end, Hashem judges us for our efforts, even when they are less than perfect, less than stellar. And we're in a Mitzrayim. Because when did Hashem give us this mitzvah? Hashem spoke to Moshe and Aaron, not when the Jewish people were at the top of their game, when they stood at Har Sinai after 49 days of eating manna, and that we were all like at such a high level and we were ready to receive the Torah. And now I'm going to give you the gift of sanctifying the moon. No. I'm giving it to you when you're at the 49th level of spiritual impurity and imperfection. At your darkest moment, that's when I'm giving this to you. It's such an expression of faith and trust in the Jewish people, so much so that it has halachic ramifications. If the Jewish courts, after with having witnesses, establish that the month starts at a certain day, God says, I will arrange the Jewish calendar to meet what you said where the month started. And if you said it's going to be a day later, I'll change it. You'd be like, really? It's like in our hands? That's crazy. So Hashem puts this whole system in our hands because he trusts us to be able to work with it. Because in the end, what we're really working with, more than just what time and what day is Pesach fall, what we're really talking about is, how do I interact with the world? How do I face my daily challenges, my weekly challenges, my monthly challenges? How am I living in this world? And remembering that I don't want to make the mistake of the moon at creation, but I want to correct that. I want to correct it so that the sum of all of our efforts will lead us to Mashiach and to the moon being made full again, not full moon, bigger again to reflect the ultimate light. When it says the Jewish people are to be a light unto the nations, what light is that? Like flashlights? The light on your phone? Like what's the light? The light is the light we reflect from Hashem. That's the only light we have. So that light through Torah and mitzvahs, that is the light that we give to the rest of the world. So when we get that right, we are contributing to the return of the moon to its full size. God willing, this month of Shvat, it should just be a time when we feel we can immerse ourselves, re-explore, re-look at things that we've learned before and uncover new insights, new connections, new understandings, and take our journey, our ongoing lifelong journey to just bring us success. And as we go, to bring the water of Torah to everyone we know, even if it's just a drop, a sip, whatever it is, to share with other people. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a Chodesh Tov.
Thank you.
Be inspiring, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amazing. And chicken soup. It was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me.
Excellent.
I was so excited to share it with you.